The night air in Canóvanas, Puerto Rico, was heavy with the scent of rain and the steady hum of insects. Madelyne Tolentino, a local farmer, stood at the edge of her property, her heart beating fast. The moon hung low, casting pale light over the fields. Somewhere in the darkness, something moved, something that would change her life and the world forever. It was March 1995. The world was about to meet a new kind of monster. Not a creature from ancient myth or faded legend, but something that seemed to crawl straight out of the nightmares of a modern, media-driven age. The Chupacabra, Spanish for goat sucker, would soon become a name whispered in fear from the deserts of Mexico to the forests of Maine, from the jungles of Brazil to the suburbs of Miami. But what was the Chupacabra? Was it a bloodthirsty beast, a government experiment gone wrong, an alien left behind, or simply the invention of a frightened mind? To answer that, we need to step into the shadows, where fact and fiction blur, and every sound in the night could be a clue. The story began, as so many do, with a mystery. In the spring of 1995, farmers across Puerto Rico woke to a nightmare. Their livestock, goats, chickens, sheep lay dead in the fields. Their bodies were drained of blood, with 2 small puncture wounds on their necks, the only sign of violence. There was no blood on the ground, no sign of a struggle. It was as if the life had simply been sucked out of them. Panic spread quickly. Newspapers gave the killer a name: El Chupacabra. Soon, sightings poured in from every corner of the island. People described a creature unlike anything they had ever seen, 3 to 4 feet tall, with leathery or scaly gray-green skin, spines running down its back, glowing red eyes, and a mouth full of fangs. Some said it hopped like a kangaroo, others that it moved with a predator's grace, silent and swift. Madelyne Tolentino's account became the most famous. She claimed to have seen the creature outside her window, standing on 2 legs, its eyes locked on hers. She described it in detail, and her story was picked up by the media, repeated, and soon the Chupacabra was everywhere. But was it real? Or was it a case of mass hysteria, fueled by fear and the relentless drumbeat of the news cycle? Imagine the scene: a moonlit field, the grass wet with dew, the air heavy with the promise of rain. A farmer walks among his animals, flashlight trembling in his hand. The beam catches something ashape, hunched and unnatural, crouched over the body of a goat. The creature turns, eyes glowing, mouth stained red. For a moment, time stands still. Then, with a leap, it vanishes into the night, leaving only silence and the echo of terror. The Chupacabra was a creature of contradictions. Some said it was reptilian, with scales and spines. Others said it was covered in coarse hair, like a wild dog. Some said it had wings. Others that it was earthbound. But all agreed on one thing: it was a predator, a vampire, a thing that should not exist. The legend spread, carried by word of mouth and the media. Soon, reports came from Mexico, then Texas, then Florida, then as far north as Maine. Everywhere it went, the story was the same: dead animals, drained of blood, 2 puncture wounds, no tracks, no explanation. But the Chupacabra was more than just a monster. It was a symbol, a reflection of the fears and anxieties of a world in transition. Why did the Chupacabra capture the imagination of millions? Why did it inspire fear, fascination, and even a strange kind of pride? Perhaps it was because the world was changing. The 1990s were a time of uncertainty, economic upheaval, political instability, the rise of the internet, and the 24-hour news cycle. Old certainties were crumbling, and new dangers seemed to lurk around every corner. The Chupacabra was a monster for a new age. Elusive, mysterious, impossible to pin down. For the people of Puerto Rico, the Chupacabra was more than just a story. It was a threat, a challenge, a test of courage. Farmers armed themselves, children were kept indoors, and the government launched investigations. Scientists, skeptics, and cryptozoologists descended on the island, each with their own theories and agendas. But for many, the Chupacabra was also a source of pride, a uniquely Puerto Rican legend, a symbol of resilience and survival. In the face of fear, people told jokes, wrote songs, and even made Chupacabra piñatas. The monster became a part of the culture, a shared experience that brought people together. The Chupacabra was a shadow on the moon, a whisper in the grass, a heartbeat in the dark. It was the fear that crept in when the world was silent, the thrill of the unknown, the promise that there were still mysteries left to solve. The legend did not stay in Puerto Rico. In 1996, the Chupacabra crossed the sea, landing in Mexico, where it found fertile ground in the imaginations of a people already steeped in tales of monsters and miracles. The reports multiplied. Dead animals, strange tracks, glowing eyes in the night. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that bring history's greatest mysteries to life. In the small town of Calama, Chile, a rancher named Juan Romero awoke to find his entire flock of sheep dead, their bodies drained of blood. He swore he saw a creature, hunched and monstrous, loping away into the desert. The local police found no evidence, no tracks, no explanation. The legend spread north, crossing the border into Texas, where ranchers told stories of cattle mutilations, of strange lights in the sky, of government cover-ups and alien experiments. The Chupacabra became a part of the American mythos, joining Bigfoot, the Mothman, and the Jersey Devil in the pantheon of cryptid creatures. But here, the story took a twist. In Texas, the Chupacabra was not a reptilian monster, but a hairless, mange-ridden dog, its skin stretched tight over its bones, its eyes wild and desperate. Scientists examined the bodies and declared them to be coyotes or dogs suffering from sarcoptic mange, a disease that causes hair loss and thickening of the skin. Was this the end of the legend? Had science finally slain the monster? Not quite. Because the Chupacabra was more than just a creature, it was an idea, a story, a symbol. And stories, as we know, are hard to kill. The Chupacabra was a puzzle, a riddle wrapped in an enigma. Every time someone thought they had the answer, the story shifted, changed, evolved. It was a living legend, a creature of the collective imagination. But there was one more twist to the tale. In 2010, a biologist named Benjamin Radford traveled to Puerto Rico to investigate the origins of the Chupacabra legend. He interviewed Madelyne Tolentino, the woman whose account had launched the modern myth. He asked her to describe the creature she had seen in detail. To his surprise, her description matched almost exactly the monster from the 1995 film Species, which had been released in Puerto Rico just weeks before her sighting. Had the Chupacabra been born not in the fields of Canóvanas, but in the flickering light of a movie screen? Radford published his findings, declaring the Chupacabra to be a case of mass hysteria, fueled by media, movies, and the power of suggestion. But the legend refused to die, because the Chupacabra was more than just a story. It was a reflection of our deepest fears and desires, our need for mystery, our hunger for the unknown. It was the monster in the dark, the shadow on the wall, the thing that goes bump in the night. And as long as there are shadows, as long as there are mysteries, the Chupacabra will live on. So, the next time you find yourself walking alone at night, and you hear a rustle in the grass, a whisper on the wind, remember, the world is still full of secrets, and some of them have teeth. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. What legend should we explore next? Drop your suggestions below, and remember, the truth is out there, waiting to be found. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep the fire of curiosity burning bright.